Welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at another Hunter build. And this build is going to be all about doing some big explosions, doing some big damage, and also spamming juice these arc nukes that we're going to be making with this weapon that a lot of you guys may have not thought of in a very long time. And this build is going to be pretty much good in any sort of content, but definitely any content that has a lot of ads. This is where this build just shines and it just destroys everything. And you're going to be able to use this build in pretty much any activity in the game. I was using it pretty successfully in this week's grandmaster. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's build, and if you do, make sure that you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel in case you guys haven't already for some more builds. And now let's get into it, and first of all we're going to start with our exotics since they're the most important parts of our build. Now for our exotic weapon, we're going to be wearing the Tessellation, and this is that thing that's going to be launching those big nukes that clear out rooms and also do tons of damage, even to champions. I was actually kind of surprised with the amount of damage you can do with this charge up shot. You could pretty much just like half health the champion. And considering how often we're going to be able to do those, that is a lot of damage. So that's actually the main thing that we're going to be trying to do, just trying to activate our special charge shot as much as possible. And to activate it, in case you guys never used this weapon, you have to consume your grenade. So we're actually going to be building into our grenade quite a bit with this weapon. But the weapon itself actually does have something to help us get our grenade back faster, since every time that we get a kill with this weapon, we do get grenade energy. It's essentially like a powered up version of the Demolitionist. Every time that we get kills, we get some energy towards our grenade. And this applies to both the normal version of the weapon, as well as the charged up one. So if we shoot one of these ones into a big group of enemies, and it kills a bunch of them, we can actually get our grenade fully back, and then even more on top of it. It's actually going to be really great. And that's like the main thing we're going to be doing with this thing. And since Tessellation is also a fusion rifle, we can also take advantage of particle reconstruction with this, so we can get even more damage out there. Now for our exotic piece of armor, we are going to be on the Shinobun's Bow, since this is going to give us an additional grenade charge. It does do a couple of other things, but that's basically the only reason why we're running this, just so we can hold two grenades at the same time. And this makes it so we have an insane uptime on that charged up shot with Tessellation. A couple of times I shot the Tessellation shot, like the charged up shot, and then immediately charged up both of my grenades. That's something that could actually happen a lot more often than you would think if we shoot like some big groups of enemies. Because not only is the first shot doing a bunch of damage, but then whatever dies also explodes again and does some more damage, and if those things get kills, that will also get you grenade energy. So getting grenade energy is going to be really nice, and having two charges just makes it a lot easier and makes it so we can really make the most out of every single kill that we get with our Tessellation. Now the other weapons that you want to run with the Tessellation, those are going to be up to you. So if you're running this in a place that has champions, I recommend that you go with whatever else is going to stun champions. Since this week's GM, it is Unstoppable and Overload, so I decided to go with a machine gun. And then for the primary, I just had the S-Stock, not really for any specific reason, just because it's like a primary I had in this slot. But remember that Tessellation will always be able to deal with those Unstoppables, so you really just have to worry about the overloads and also the barriers. Now moving on to the subclass, we're going to use pure Arc, and for your super you can go with either Gathering Storm or the Arc Staff. They both are going to work pretty well in PvE. For your dodge, you want to go with Gambler's Dodge, so you can get your melee back a lot more often, and also because it causes some issues whenever we go with Marksman Dodge. Reloading every time they use our Ascension actually might get rid of like your special like big charged up shot, so instead we go with Gambler's Dodge. For your melee, I recommend Disorienting Blows. It's gonna amplify you, it's gonna use some bolt charge, and it's also gonna blind a bunch of targets. This ability actually got buffed recently too, making that blind explosion even bigger, so you can get more things. And lastly for a grenade, you want to be on the skip grenade so our exotic can give us those two charges. Now moving on to the aspects, the first one is gonna be Ascension. This thing is just like a must-have, pretty much for any arc build. It gives amplified very easily. It jolts targets, it gives us bolt charge this season, and now that amplified gives us damage resistance, it essentially also gives us damage resistance as well. So it's a really good ability, and with this build we're basically going to be able to spam it every couple of seconds. Now the second aspect is not really as important as the first one, but I decided to go with Flow State. Whenever we defeat any jolted targets, it makes us amplified, and whenever we're amplified, our dodge is going to recharge more quickly, allowing us to use it every couple of seconds. I mean, just look at this. This is me just activating my amplified and then just waiting, not really picking up any orbs or anything like that, and then being able to use it again in just a couple of seconds. And this is not even with like 100 mobility or anything like that. We have around 40 mobility, so you're going to be able to spam this a lot. And this is going to give our weapons a ton of reload speed whenever we're amplified, so we always just have maxed out reload speed on pretty much all our weapons. Now moving on to the fragments, the very first one is going to be a really big one because of the spark of beacons. Whenever we're amplified, which again is going to be all the time, whenever we get some kills with our special or heavy arc weapons, they're going to create blind explosions. And this has no cooldown between creating those, so you can actually just create them back to back to back. And when you shoot one of your big charged up shots from Tessellation to a big group of enemies, not only is that first shot, whenever it gets kills, making things blind, any of the follow-up explosions are also going to be making more things blind, so you're just going to be doing a ton of blind explosions. Whenever you get normal kills with your Tessellation or with your heavy weapon, it's also going to be making some big explosions. Overall, you're just going to be blinding targets, and they're going to be a lot easier to kill. That's why I recommend that your heavy weapon is also an arc weapon, whether it's a machine gun, a linear, a grenade launcher, whatever it is. As long as it's a heavy weapon as well, you're also going to be able to take advantage of this blind and use it. But the best one is definitely an arc LMG though, like the brand new one from the season. That is perfect, and that's also one I'm using in the background. After that, we're going to have the spark of resistance. This is going to give us damage resistance whenever we're surrounded, using improving our survivability even more, and this does stack with damage resistance wherever you're getting from amplified. So we're actually going to be able to take quite a bit of damage with this build, even though we're not like super building into damage resistance. After that, we're going to have the spark of ions. Whenever we defeat a jolted target, we gain some bolt charge and also make some ionic traces, so we can get our abilities back faster, and so we can activate bolt charge. The spark of discharge is another one that's going to be pretty similar. Whenever we get some arc weapon final blows, we have a chance to create ionic traces, and also collecting ionic traces gives us bolt charge, again so we can get our abilities back faster with the ionic traces, and so we can use bolt charge a lot more often. And the last fragment that we have on this build is going to be the spark of amplitude. Whenever we rapidly defeat targets and we're amplified, which is all the time, we create some ores of power. This just gives us another way of making even more ores of power, since those are going to be pretty useful for keeping us alive and for also getting our abilities back faster. Now for the artifact, we're mostly just going to be taking the arc ones with a couple of other extra ones that are also going to be helping our build. You definitely want to have unstoppable fusion, so our Tessellation can stop those unstoppables. After that, dielectric is definitely going to be another really good one, because it's basically just going to increase the amount of bolt charge we can actually use with this build. Every time that we kill an enemy that's affected by an arc debuff, whether it's the blind or the jolt, we're going to get some bolt charge, meaning that we can activate it a lot more. And this is really what's going to give us a ton of the bolt charge we're getting, since we're always going to be blinding or jolting targets. And the buffed version gives us even more ores of power, as well as a bit of healing, just kind of built into the class. And I know I saw a couple of people say that they didn't have this, the dielectric mod. You can actually go to the apartment and actually pick it up. I think it's at rank number 8 or 9. So if you have not gone back there to pick the upgraded version of dielectric, go for it, and then you're going to be able to use this part of the perk. Dreadful Finisher is definitely a must-have for this build, since it is a special weapon, and this gives a very easy way of making some special ammo, especially in places where there's champions. Whenever you finish a champion, you get so much special ammo out of it. It's amazing. Flashover is also going to be really good, since it increases the amount of damage due from the bolt charge, and since we're going to be activating that fairly often, we definitely want to get as much damage as we can from those bolt charge like lightning strikes. And lastly, from this final column, you want to have particle deconstruction, so our Tessellation can do more damage with both just the regular shot and the charged up one. And for any activity that has champions, you always want to have defibrillating blast, since it'll give you immediately bolt charge whenever you stun a champion. It's going to jolt a bunch of targets, and it's going to give you some health back. Just overall really good things for like in-game content, and the more champions there are, the more often you can actually use this thing. And lastly, let's take a look at the mods that were running on this build. For the helmet, we have Harmonic Siphon, so you can make some ores with our arc weapons, and then also Heavy Ammo Finder as well as Special Finder. Since this build relies a lot on our heavy and special weapon, we definitely want to have as much ammo as we can get. For your gauntlets, we actually want to have 2 phone to focuses, and this will increase our discipline so we can regen our grenade a lot more often. Since this build requires a lot of grenade energy, I decided to go with this, and also since we're not really going to be using our grenades, a lot of the other mods don't really help us, and we already have like maxed out reload speed and handling on our weapons, so a lot of the gauntlet mods are actually not going to be doing anything for us, so I just decided to double up on the phone to focus, so we can just improve the regen pretty much all the time. For your chest piece, you pretty much just have the resistances, Void Resistance, Concussive Dampener, and Harmonic Resistance. Now this matches the GM this week, but if you're taking this into a different GM, make sure that you change them. I always recommend that you keep the Concussive Dampener, because this is just all around just a really good mod, but the other ones can be changed around however you like. For our boots, I decided to go with a Harmonic Scavenger, Innervation, and also Recuperation, so we can get some health whenever we pick up orbs, so we can get some grenade energy whenever we pick up orbs, and so whenever we pick up some special or heavy, we get some more out of it. This is really good, and since we're gonna be relying again on special and heavy, we want to just get as much as we can from any drop. And lastly, for our class item, we just have 2 time dilation mods, so we can extend our armor charge as much as we can, so we can always have the increased regen on our grenade. And since we're going to be using our class ability on the Ascension, just spamming it over and over again, a lot of these mods won't really work with it. A lot of the mods that I wanted to use just didn't really make sense, so I decided to keep it simple with the time dilation mods, so we can always just have a bunch of regenerating our grenades. And with that, that's actually going to be the end of the build. That's pretty much everything that you need to make this thing work. Get a bunch of grenade energy and just pretty much spam the charge tessellation shot over and over again. This is actually a build that was suggested to me during one of the grandmaster streams, and while I was a little bit skeptical at first, after using it for a couple of runs in the GM and just other activities, I definitely can tell you that this is a very fun build, and it can definitely be very effective in certain situations. I would say that this build works the best whenever there's some really high ad density, so you can really take advantage of just those big exploding nukes that you kind of shoot at enemies, where you kill a bunch of enemies, do some big damage to some big enemies, and you also get a bunch of your grenade energy back. If you're not running into a lot of ads, then I don't think it's as good, but you can still definitely put in a lot of damage with just one of these charged shots. They're essentially equivalent to like a rocket shot, like a buffed up rocket shot too, not even just a normal one. One with like explosive light or maybe some bait and switch. They hit for a lot of damage. I regularly hit like 100k with some of the charged shots on the tessellation, and that is just really good, especially considering just how often we get our grenades and how many of those shots we can get out there. It is really good, essentially having like a special ammo rocket launcher at times. It probably has to be one of the most simple but effective builds we've done in a while, and I just really like it. It's very satisfying charging this thing up and just firing into a group of enemies and then just seeing tons and tons of explosions, while at the same time getting a ton of grenade energy and getting a ton of score in your screen. Also, chunking the champions is very satisfying as well. You regularly do half of the champion's health just with a charged shot, so then finishing it off is pretty easy. So definitely do not underestimate this weapon. This weapon is actually really good, and with some of the fusion rifle buffs this season, it's definitely worth using. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, hopefully you guys liked it. Like always, there will be a dem link in the comments below in case you guys just want to give it a try. And if you guys do end up using it, remember to come back here and let me know what you guys thought of the build, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, and any other things you may want to tell me about it. But thank you all for watching today, hopefully you enjoyed the build, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.